I don't know anything, honey. Oh, this one. Oh, we're getting our gloves on. Yeah, thank you.
Here's turtle fats.
Thanks. Here, scoot up so you can see a little bit.
Out 3 nights ago. And maybe a strategy. What we're going to do is pull out all the eggs versus how many we know went out.
All right, we're going to get started. So we are at nest number 29 out of 34 on Panama City Beach Turtle Watch. Patrolled area, which runs from Camp Helen, which is not far here to our west, all the way down to St. Andrews State Park on the east. We're currently behind the Shores condos. We had this nest laid on July 12th. Why are you looking? Oh. This nest was laid on July 12th, and it hatched 3 nights ago on September 5th. So we're here to conduct an excavation to determine the success of the nest. Let's tell you how this nest even got here. So our sea turtle season here in Panama City Beach, Florida starts May 1st, at which time our morning surveyors come out at sunrise. They split the beach in half. One goes east, one goes west, and they're looking for fresh mother sea turtle tracks. Sea turtles typically nest overnight, the species that we have here on our beach at least, which are commonly loggerheads, sometimes greens and leatherbacks. They typically nest overnight, so we come out at sunrise looking for those tracks. A loggerhead is going to be 250 to 300 pounds, going to be 2 to 3 foot wide. So she's going to leave a nice impression in the sand, so that's what we're going to be looking for when we come out looking in the morning to see if we see any nesting activity. If our volunteers encounter a turtle track, then they will assess it and determine if they feel that there are characteristics that identify that a nest has been laid. And if so, they'll call our volunteers out, and the volunteers will come and mark off the area as you see it marked and protected here. That area then stays protected for the next 60 days or so until the nest hatches, at which time we will have volunteers checking it when it's been about 2 months. They'll come out at night checking for any hatch activity. And that's because here on Panama City Beach, a lot of the hatch activity encounters disorientation from the hatchlings, and that is where the hatchlings are going in the wrong direction. So they're drawn towards artificial lights instead of towards the shimmering water. So in this case, our hatchlings usually hatch overnight, and in this case, our volunteers were here and noticed a depression. The depression formed when the hatchlings, a couple of days before they emerged from that chamber, the hatchlings broke out of their eggs and then waited for their siblings. There could be about 100 eggs or so in there. They waited for their siblings to break out as well. And then someone gave the cue a couple nights later and said it's time to go. Probably the sand temperatures had cooled off. So they then started their journey up through the column of sand. When that mother turtle came and laid that nest back on July 12th, she dug the chamber with her rear flippers, and when she could no longer feel sand at the tip of her rear flippers, she then started dropping those eggs. We did not do anything to confirm how many eggs were here. All we did, based on the signs that she left, we marked the nest off. So they broke out of their eggs 3 nights ago, or a couple days ago, and then 3 nights ago, they finally made it through, it looked like about 17 inches of sand that they needed to crawl on up and get out to the surface. So volunteers did happen to be here and see body parts of the little hatchlings that were still working on their way up. Saw body parts visible in that depression. And if you're ever out here and you see sand kind of thrown up on top of the nest area that's been marked off, that's very likely that that came from a crab hole, because the turtles, as they're coming up, they're not going to throw a pile of sand out. All the sand is going to be dropping beneath them where the eggs have now been compressed and they're working on their way up through any of that void air that was in that chamber. So the hatchlings made it up and then they emerged. Volunteers have been trained by FWC to let the turtles orient naturally. and just observe, and if the hatchlings go in the wrong direction, which is disorientation, if they're going towards artificial lights and not towards the water, then volunteers have been trained on how to recover those hatchlings so they can then be taken to a dark beach to be released later that night. That's exactly what volunteers did. So they collected hatchlings. Volunteers said that the hatchlings at this nest actually went out all 4 sides. So some of them did make it to the water on their own, but others had gone both east and west and had to be collected. So when they collect them, they put them into a cooler that has sand from this area, and that just acts as a temporary nest. What we're doing now during this excavation is pulling the eggs out. So far we see a lot of hatched eggs. We see 2 unhatched eggs. We're just going to keep pulling those eggs out, putting them into different categories so that we can determine how many eggs were in here and how many were successful. This is nest number 29 out of 34, so we only have a couple of nests left on the beach to monitor. Typically, our season will start May 1st, which is when we started monitoring, and then the nesting can go through mid-September, but we don't expect a lot of nest, and at this point we haven't had any nest in a while. So our nesting season is just about done, but we will be out here on the beach monitoring the nest when they've been on the beach about 2 months until the last nest has hatched or until we have excavated it. So we had hit a little bit of a lull in our nesting and hatching throughout the season. In our hatching, we had encountered Tropical Storm Alberto back in mid-June, in which that storm had put a lot of extra water and sand over some of the nests that were on our beach. Those were a lot of the nests in the teens.
Yeah, could be 100 eggs.
Those nests, many of them were non-viable by the time that they had stopped developing when Tropical Storm Alberto had washed ashore. But we're back to some good hatches with these nests, and we're hoping the last couple of nests will be nice and well successful as well. So what we're doing here is just looking to see how many of the eggs hatched, how many didn't hatch, and we will turn that data into FWC. They're the ones that issue our permit that identify to us what activities we can perform, and it's their way of finding out what is happening with the sea turtle population. So loggerheads will nest every 2 weeks or so. So within a season, they could, if they get started earlier enough, they could lay 3 to 7 nests in a season. So this is nest number 29. We believe that there's a good chance that somewhere here in the Panhandle, this turtle probably also laid another nest throughout this season, since they do commonly lay multiple nests. When the eggs are dropping, the eggs that the turtle deposits, they look like this. They aren't going to look as discolored, but they're going to be about the size of a ping pong ball. They do not have a hard shell. She's dropping them 17 plus inches deep at this particular nest. She's dropping them, so if they were hard like a chicken egg, then they would break as they drop. They are like a ping pong ball, and then we'll be able to bring some samples around at the end. You won't be able to touch, but you'll be able to see that the hatched eggs are kind of papery, and looks like we've got some brittle shells here because we're collecting some little fragments that are being found in the chamber area. So there's a couple things that we can do to help both nesting turtles and hatching turtles. The saying in the sea turtle world goes clean, dark, and flat. So we can leave our beaches clean so that as a nesting turtle or as a hatching is on the sand, they do not have to encounter any obstacles. We do have a leave no trace ordinance which says that nothing is to be left unattended between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. So make sure that whatever you bring with you to the beach, that you are taking it off the beach with you as well. Then we want to leave it nice and dark. We already talked about disorientation, so artificial lights with so much development right here along the beach here in Panama City Beach. We have a lot of artificial light disruption to the hatchlings. And then we can also leave it flat so that they are not encountering any other obstacles or a hole that they have to dig out on their own. So if a nesting female falls into a hole, her instinct is going to be to go forward. They cannot go into reverse. So if she falls head first into a hole, she's just going to keep going trying to get out, but she's really just digging herself in further. And for hatchlings, we see a large number of hatched eggs here. These turtles all used teamwork the other night to get out. If a hatchling falls into, say, a 4-foot hole, then it's going to be a lot harder for them to crawl out of that hole on their own when they don't have their other 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 siblings helping them. So we can leave our beaches flat, knock your sandcastles down, fill in your holes when you leave the beach. We do have some items. I see a model here. We have t-shirts that we have available at Access 94 if you are interested afterwards. And we also have hats, visors, reusable tote bags. That all is funds that we raise, and it just goes directly back into our program. We've passed out some activity books, some stickers, and things like that for the children. And then another way that Florida residents can help is by buying the Sea Turtle license plate. That is going to help issue grants to different organizations that are looking for some funds to be able to take care of some kind of project that they're looking at doing. So that's another way that you would be able to help. So this is a loggerhead nest. How did we know that? We knew that because of the track that the turtle left when we found the nest. The other species that will lay on the beach here in the Panama City Beach would be greens. We've had none of those this year, but then we can also occasionally get a leatherback. That is the largest species. That one is an endangered species. The greens and the loggerheads are both going to be in the threatened category. So right now our volunteers are just making sure that they have looked at each each egg to make sure that they aren't over counting how many eggs were hatched, since some of them break apart. And then they're going to record the data. They've already collected some sand from the top of the nest. They're going to collect some sand from the bottom of the nest. That is, our beaches went through a renourishment project 3 years ago, and we're just collecting some sand samples because this is not the sand that was on the beach 3 years prior to that nourishment project. So we're collecting some sand samples, and then we're going to just record what we have found in the nest. We're going to collect a couple of eggs for research purposes. The sea turtles are both federally and state protected, so the only way that we can walk away from the beach with any items is because our permit says that an FW or a researcher can work with us to collect specimens. So we will collect some of the unhatched eggs. Those eggs will not hatch if they haven't hatched at this point, and that is because everything happens in that nest at about the same time. That's why we gave it an extra 3 days for them to hatch if they had not hatched when the other eggs hatched. But for whatever reason, it looks like the couple that we have over here just didn't finish developing. So we'll probably collect a couple of those to send those off to a researcher. We do announce our excavation.